Greetings, Shardvixen here, and that light didn't help me at all with the background light. I have another light behind me, but if I turn it on, it's not going to help either, even if I was to turn it that way. I'm sitting someplace new again, because I feel like when I sit in my rocking chair, I'm so far back that it doesn't work, and I've moved all my lights. I've moved all my lights for my crafting, because this is where I craft. See, it's my crafting area. Right now it's got books in the way, and my laptop, but this is my crafting area. I think I'm going to put my laptop over here. These are all my storage units. I don't know if you can see them or not. But they're all my storage units. So I got this little area right here, and then my computer is way over there next to my TV set for my video games. So this is probably kind of dark, but it is what it is. Look at this. I lost weight in my neck, and now it's flabby. 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 Alright, this is Know Thyself, and I'm doing Dr. Seuss today. Dr. Seuss has a really big impact on me in that not only did I watch his movies, did reports on him in school, used him as a basis of teaching things to kids, or in similar style, and then also read to my own children, and then read to my grandchild. So I'm sure for lots of other people that's the same as well. I know that he didn't have a really upright standing kind of background, but I don't think that, to me, that affects him as an artist. Now, when I speak of him as an artist, it's both as an illustrator and a writer. I love his artwork. I do. I think it's just fabulous artwork. And I think that his type of artwork had a very big influence on how I do my own artwork. Very doodle-like style. He has some art collections of work that he's done that's not connected to his books per se, and then some that are taken from his books. But who could forget the Lorax trees? I can't remember the name of them, but that striped color of looking like they just look soft and squishy, and Horton, who could forget Horton, Sam I Am, and some of the pictures that he drew. And a lot of people say he's kind of a simple artist. I don't think he's a simple artist. I think that he is very much a fantastical artist that appeals to children. Not just children, but that's the sense, is that he drew creatures that were elaborate, but not to the point that they were so integral that people couldn't be appealed by it at any age. It had a sense of fun. It had a sense of enjoyment, happiness, So my favorite books, of course, are Green Eggs and Ham, Fox and Socks, because I like the rhyming. As a child, I was very into rhyming. I was very into nonsense words and rhyming with nonsense words and creating my own language. I enjoyed creating civilizations who had their own language with words that, you could translate from English into English. I like that, and I still do that when I write. So I attribute that to him. He had this sense of how he created his own realms, his own worlds. I loved Horton Hears a Who, because Horton was a lot like how I felt. And then the little Who's, talk about being small and insignificant. That's a feeling I had in my life, most of my life, like I was invisible and people didn't see me. And so that's what I take from Horton Hears a Who. Like all great storytellers, he had the ability to write that which is just the basic words, that the basic language of, a fox is a fox and a house is a house. And then he had the ability to put them into poetry and or stories that had a deeper sense to them, like Horton, and the Sneetches. Love the Sneetches. I don't know why I call them the Snitches, though. and there are stars upon stars. You know, that is a classic example to me. I'm not saying to anybody else, and I wrote a paper on it, of when you talk about how society follows groups of people or ideology that has a certain type of stereotype to it that they follow, and that everybody who isn't part of that, you know, has stars upon theirs. Everyone who's not part of it doesn't have their stars upon theirs, and everyone who is has it. And I love the book because it shows you a classic example of what happens of when people start fighting over that, and eventually find out that they are either the same or they decimate another whole culture because they're not. Um, and I know you'll say, oh, that's looking way too in-depth in it. But it's not. I'm not the only one that does it. There are people out there who have tore apart every author you could ever imagine. And what does it mean? And the reason is if you think about dream analysis, the human brain has a sensory memory. And then it also has a memory that is based on what things represent to them. So red is red, but it also represents a color that holds an intenseness to us. And then it's also a color that we had attribute its own characteristics to, like red being powerful because it appeals to us. Some psychiatrists, people who study psychology, who look at color in different cultures. You know, red means different things in different cultures. And then that when you read that story and it has red in it, or a poem about red, it brings those images to the forefront. Why is it that, you know, some people say that red is considered a seductive color because of the apple is seen as a red apple in the Garden of Eve, even though it wasn't a gold, it was a gold apple, you know. Sorry. The boy's over there listening to stuff with his headphones on, so that will pop out if you hear him. He'll be saying certain things about it. So, you know, we look at words, they mean other things. Like if you do a dream analysis, and this is not me going off of it, but if you were to do a dream analysis of the poetry in like Green Eggs and Ham, you would pick out the words that mean the most to you in the story. And then you would reflect what they actually mean to you. Not what they mean to Dr. Seuss, and not what they mean to the overall. Because books, any art, there is the base meaning, because of what the words or the images or whatever, what they mean in the base normality, or the norm rules. And then there is the writers, or the painters, or the sculptures' intent. And then there's the reader's own biases that come from where they come from. And so you have this mixture. And then there's the critics. And the critics have to, so that we have a reason, so we have those people, those stars upon theirs, who tell us what is good and what's not. I like what I like. I like Dr. Seuss because I grew up with him. It's easy to read. It's easy for children to learn to read. And with both my kids, I read them because I enjoyed them and they enjoyed them. They each have their own favorite ones they like. Dr. Seuss died, you know, at the age of 87 in 1991, the same year as my daughter born. In fact, two months after she was born. So, and, you know, everybody celebrates him because he is it's wonderful books. I think that he has gone beyond what average writers, because there are just as many spectacular writers and illustrators out there of children's books that many people don't know about anymore because they're not celebrated like Dr. Seuss has been celebrated. And that's probably due to great management from his wife there that he married, the second wife. And, you know, when I was growing up, people didn't look at, like a writer, you didn't really look too in-depth into their life until they died. Then you start looking into people's lives. Because more information would come forward or whatever. But I don't think that I would have been much interested in what was going on in Dr. Seuss's life, you know, when I was a kid. I wouldn't have cared. Not really. I'm sure that a lot of people feel this way, but I feel like my growing up was very brainwashy. You were told not to do this, not to do that, not to do this, do this, do this, do this. And I see, and then it was as I was growing older, I started to learn to say, no, I don't think that's the way to do it. I don't think I'm the only one from my generation that kind of looked around and said, you know, we're not really going to follow this. And then I think there's like it splits. As soon as you get to a certain age, you start becoming your parents. I'm not my parents in any shape or form that I know of. Maybe there's bits of them someplace that I hear in the back of my mind, but for the most part, I branched out on my own because I didn't feel that either one of my parents were equipped to be parents, nor did they have an understanding of the changeover that from the 50s to the 60s to the 70s with the introduction of more people expressing themselves and us learning about the world around us. And then you add the internet to that gives you information, you know, at the touch of your fingertips. And I think that industrial electronic industrial age has changed the way that my parents looked at stuff and did, because they followed more like what their parents did. Whereas I branched away from it. I know a lot of other people who also branched away from the way that their parents taught them that are the same age or the same generation as I am. But getting back to Dr. Seuss. So Dr. Seuss was a mainstay in my grandmother's house. She had, and I've talked about this in other things about comic books and stuff, she had this coat room. It seemed round. I don't know if it was round, but it seemed like it was round because the coats went around in this circle, and in the center of the circle was a light that when you pulled on it, it went, you know, did that click sound. I mean, I could still hear it in my head all the time because I'd pull it, and then the light would shine up. And in the middle of the rounded area, there would be the box of comic books, and there would be a place to sit to read. That was one of my favorite places to read because I'd get up between the coats that were there, and then there was a round bench that went around, or boxes, I don't know which. It felt like a bench. And I'd crawl up there, and I would read comic books when I was small, and I would read Dr. Seuss books, along with other authors of that time for children books. But Dr. Seuss is the one that always stands in my mind as reading, you know, remembering reading the Lorax. Lorax was one of my favorites too because it was such a predictable, like it was predicting what could happen based on things that had happened in the past and now that things we're seeing in the future of us overusing stuff. And in video games, the same thing. You see where human beings deplete this whole planetary system, you know, and you think, is that all we're good for? And then, you know, as I got bigger and I couldn't sit in the little area, my grandmother's house was an older farmhouse, and it had a, what do you call it, mudroom. There was a mudroom before you came, as you came in the back door. So there was the back door, and then there was the front door, and then, so the back door had a mudroom and stairs that went up to the attic. And above the mudroom was one room and a window. And then you went past that, and there was the whole floor plan of the house, which was my aunt's bedrooms were up there. And then they had what was the window. It wasn't, I don't know, there's a word for it. I think it's alcove. The window alcove, because you would go through and the windows would come out. I'm sure you've seen houses like that where the windows are like this and they come out in like a triangle thing. And there'd be rooms in that where I could sit on a window seat and I would read. And I could look out over the driveway where the driveway that came into the yard. And if I wanted to go over to the front, I could look out on the road, or I could go over to the other side and look at the neighbor's area. Or when my grandfather wasn't around, I could go over to his chair area where he had a little TV set and he had a chair and all the National Geographics were up there. And I could sit up on, he had like I want to say it was a bed. I'm not sure if it was or not, but it was always filled with books. And I could crawl my way up there and sit on that bed and sit and read. That's pretty much the places I would hide out when I went to my grandmother's house. There was no basement that I knew of that was used as a basement. Like, I don't think she had a basement. there was a shed that they had that you went out to. That was my grandfather's work shed, and then another carport area that he put all the cars into. And then it went out to this huge backyard, like as big as the backyard we had at my house, the house I grew up in, a childhood house. And then my grandmother's garden, my grandmother's chickens, and then the back fence went into a slough. That was the drainage for the rain and stuff, and things happened there and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, so the only reason I said that was because those memories of reading Dr. Seuss are connected, well, reading comic books, are connected to the house. And but I do remember reading Dr. Seuss in the car, and I do remember reading Dr. Seuss in our living room in my house. I don't remember reading Dr. Seuss in my bedroom though, at my, as a childhood. I'm sure I did though. Who I remember more is a different artist that I'll talk about, illustrator, that I grew up on, that I read a lot to my brother. But I think Dr. Seuss had a good sense about some of the things he wrote about. Thing is that I found interesting when I was doing a report on him for one of my classes in liberal studies, is that he didn't really like children. On that sense that he didn't really want to have any of his own. So that was always kind of interesting to me, because he wrote these beautiful stories, but yet he loved sharing them with other children that weren't his own, but he didn't really want to have any children of his own. So yeah, Dr. Seuss is an interesting concept, because if you think how like 60 billion books have been sold, I think is what it said, or 60 million, something like that. That's a lot of books. And then all the movies that they've made and stuff. The other impact on me was that the poetic rhythmic of it, when I was pregnant with my daughter, they suggested in Lamaze that you have something that had a cadence to it that would be good for you doing your breathing, and I used green eggs and ham. And the Lamaze coach, I remember, asked me if wasn't there something else I wanted to use, and I said no, I really like this. I've always liked it. It sits in my head, would you eat them on a train? Would you eat them in the rain? Will you eat them with a goat? Will you eat them on a boat? No, I will not eat green eggs and ham. And then repeating that same cadence back to you. And it always sticks in my head. I had it memorized from my Lamaze class, of course. And it pops up every once in a while. I'll do that one. Or in Horton Hears a Who, in the Who people, we are here, we are here, we are here. I mean, you just kind of get this sense of how that feels, of being able to say, we are here, we are here, we are here. I am here, I am here, I am here. And the way he wrote that had a very profound effect on me as a kid, and then later reading it to my kids and having it from a different viewpoint. I always tell people when I used to teach parenting classes is to pick a book that you loved when you were a kid, and then read them to your kid and see if you have the same love for the book as you did when you were a child. I mean, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we see other things in it because our brain is coming from a different place. For me, Dr. Seuss still has the same feel as it had when I was a kid, when I read it to my kids. The joy that I enjoyed reading the book, as you discover how, Sam I Am is trying to get him to eat the green eggs and ham, and how he doesn't want to eat the green eggs and ham, but then at the end he finally eats the green eggs and ham, and then he's like, yeah, I do, I love green eggs and ham. And that's also a reflection on the fact that I hated certain foods, and I could remember people doing the same thing to me to get me to eat foods that I didn't like. I never did say, oh yeah, I like them now. But it is an interesting thing of having someone say to you, I know you'll like this, try it. And trusting them enough eventually to try it was a big deal. And like I said, we have a whole different way that we perceive words, and rhyming words especially, because we listen to the cadence of them, and they sound good, but we don't always see an imagery. And then we listen to the imagery of it, and we see this certain imagery, And then we have our imagery, and then we have the Dr. Seuss's imagery, or whatever, whoever the poetry is, and then we have who the critics decide. And his artwork has always inspired me to want to do artwork like him, where it was that elaborate and complex, but yet not so intricate that anybody couldn't do the work. It's very unique to him. It's easy to copy, of course, but it's very Dr. Seuss. Like if you saw it, if all of a sudden something popped up and it was a long lost Dr. Seuss, you would know it was Dr. Seuss. And that's pretty cool. Anyway, so that's it.
I'm water possessed.
Yeah, boo boy, watermelon possessed. That's not how that is. That would be obsessed. You're obsessed with the watermelon. He wants to eat lots of it. I'm sorry for the shadows. Maybe if I sit back, it'll look better. Anyway, of course, next one will be, what does the vixen say? I'm thinking we'll do loaded questions again, but I'm not positive. I mean, I might do something else. I have a couple of things lined up for that. Anyway, I will catch you all on the flip side. I'm out of here. Peace, peace. And it'll be better next time. I'll set light system up a little better. I'd probably put a light back here. I just have to figure out how to get it set up so that it shines. Not like where this one is, where it shines right in you, but something maybe up here higher. So, or I'll move and be back over at the other place. Anyway, have a great week, guys, and be sure to watch me when I stream. And I will be doing a live test on Wild Rhyme. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check it out. Remember, you can always talk to me on Twitter. You can leave comments for this video. You can go to my Discord, which is listed in my stuff. Be sure to take a look at all the people I suggest. They're really good streamers and stuff. Anyway, bye, 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 bye-bye.